Employees will follow your tempo, whether you like it or not. And I'll repeat the last two words, or not, because that will happen. I would just like you to envision that when you come into your restaurant, the employees begin looking at you the minute you hit the door. They're watching you because they're looking for a tempo. If you take your baton and you move this slow, they will also move that slow. You speed it up, they will speed up. They're watching your every move, whether you want them to or not. And that is the key. They'll also pick up the things that you don't want them to pick up. The first time I found out about how much power I had in this particular area, I used to work in retail for about 12 years, retail management, and I managed a clothing store up in the Seattle area. It was during the jean boom in the 70s when Britannia jeans, and just any jean you put on a table would fly out the door. We had a theory in retail, stack them high and watch them fly. So at the mall that I worked in, it was about 15 minutes before opening, we had about 10 cases of jeans to get stacked up on these tables. And I had two stock people that I asked to go do it. Well, I watched them as they were putting the jeans out. And they were putting them out at about this pace, and they were talking to each other, which is fine. But I knew at the pace they were going, they were never going to get it out on time. So I stepped out, came up to the front of the store, and I said, let me give you a hand. Cracked open a box, and I kept talking right with them, but I was working at about twice the pace they were. I never said a word. But immediately, they began working at the exact same pace as me. It was the very first time, this is almost 25 years ago, that I realized the power that I had to set the tempo for the people around me with the unspoken word, simply by doing it. About 15 years ago, when I started one of my businesses up 15 years ago, a different company, I had about 10 employees. And I used to get my postage stamps at the post office like most of us and lick them and put them on the bills that I would send out. So that's how I clearly handled most of my mail. Well, I went over to a friend of mine who he owned a business that was much larger than mine, and I was sitting there talking to him, but I noticed his secretary was over there, and she had this machine in front of her. It was sweetness. You put a piece of mail in there, you go ka-ching, you put a ka-ching stamp on it, and it was sweet. I said, well, if you're going to have a professional business, Brad, you've got to have one of these machines. So I went to Pitney Bowes, and I leased myself a ka-ching machine. Brought it back to my office. I put my mail in there. Ka-ching! It was beautiful. And I put it inside my mail slot. Working fabulous. I started to notice, however, that it was working so good, and I was having a tough time at home, so I started bringing my mail and my bills from home and putting them in my ka-ching machine and putting my mail in the mail slot to go out. I noticed a few weeks later, I started noticing a few of my employees' mail from home showing up with my ka-ching thing on it inside the box. Not a big deal. It's only a few pieces of mail. But I got to tell you, after about 4 months, it was near Christmas, and I'm telling you, ka-ching, 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 Christmas cards like this thick inside my thing. I brought my employees out. I sat them down. I said, what are you thinking? And they said, you do it. I said, but I own the place. They said, we don't care. So where'd that come from? You obviously do not understand the great food chain. I am the owner. I get privileges that you do not. And they look at me kind of like, no. It happened even a year after that. My wife was pregnant. It was probably 8 weeks before she's due. I'm calling home probably 6 or 8 times a day because I want to make sure nothing fell out that I'm unaware of. So I'm calling a lot. I admit to it. But all of a sudden, after about a week or two, I noticed I all of a sudden couldn't get a line out myself. So I started walking down the hall, looking in the offices. The employees all got their feet on the desk, talking to family and friends. I brought them back out again. I sat them down. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, you do it. And I said, but my wife's pregnant. They said, we had nothing to do with that. And that was really good news. But it just reinforced to me. I still, to this day, do not, you ought to see the Pitney Bowes machine I got now, man. 350 horsepower. It is a big, mean machine. But I do not bring my personal mail and run it to the machine because I know I can't stop my employees from doing it. They'll do it. And on personal phone calls, I still do not make personal phone calls. I've got 35 full-time employees. I do not make personal phone calls. And if I do have to sneak one in, I close my door. I'm that cautious about it. Setting the example. I got it reinforced to me again probably about 6 months ago. I had some shoes. I bought them at Nordstrom's. They were kind of like wearing on me a little bit. They were brand new. So I got into my office, kicked my shoes off under my desk. I was relaxed. I needed some water in my water bottle because I drink a lot of water. Walked all the way down the hallway, past the cubicles, past the office, went to the kitchen, filled the water up, came back, sat at my desk. Wasn't even 15 minutes. My vice president and general manager walks in the door and looks under my desk like that and says, Andrew? I said, what? She goes, come here. Took me out in the hallway and pointed down the hallway. Half a dozen people had their shoes off already, walking around the office. You can't win. I'm just telling you that if you want these employees to smile when they are at work, you better be smiling too. If you expect them to use the customer's name when they know the customer, you better start using their name a lot. Exaggerate. Everything that you want them to do, make sure they see it tenfold from you as well.